Level 1, the pipeline. You don't start at Delta. Nobody does. Delta selects from people who have already proven themselves in units that would be the pinnacle of most military careers. You start as an infantryman or a ranger or a Green Beret. You go to basic training, airborne school, ranger school. You earn your tab. You deploy. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. Places that don't appear on the news because the operations there don't officially exist. You spend 4 to 6 years building a resume that most soldiers would retire on. Ranger Battalion, 75th Regiment. 3 combat deployments by 25. UVEC kicked doors in Fallujah and pulled security on a mountainside in the Korangal, and fast roped from a Black Hawk onto a rooftop in Mosul at 2 o'clock a.m. You're an E5 or E6, sergeant or staff sergeant. You're very good at your job, and you know it, and the men around you know it. Just a time, a building number, and a sentence about a special operations unit organized for the conduct of missions, requiring rapid response with surgical application of a wide variety of unique special operations skills. You attend the briefing. He tells you the selection is 4 weeks. He tells you the attrition rate is historically above 90%. He does not tell you what the unit does. He does not tell you where you'll go, or what you'll carry, or who you'll work for. You show up. Level 2, the selection. It lasts approximately 4 weeks, and it is designed to break you. Not your body, though, it will break that too, your mind. The course is structured to strip away every external support system you've ever relied on and find out what's left underneath. You ruck. You carry a 45-pound pack plus water and weapon across mountainous terrain for distances that increase daily. 18 miles, then 25, then 40. The final march is a 40-mile solo land navigation course through the mountains. They don't tell you how far it is. They don't tell you when you need to finish. They don't tell you if you're doing well or poorly. The cadre observes and records and says nothing. No encouragement, no correction, no feedback of any kind. You navigate alone with a map, a compass, and your legs. You find a point. A man at the point marks your card and gives you the next grid coordinate. No words. You turn and walk. The silence is the selection. Most military training involves a cadre that yells, motivates, pushes, punishes. Here, nobody cares. The indifference is worse than any drill sergeant's fury because it forces you to generate your own motivation from nothing. Candidates quit by the dozens. They sit down at the side of a trail and raise their hand, and a truck picks them up and they're gone. No shame, no ceremony, just gone. Of the 120 candidates who started with your class, 12 will be selected. You are one of 12. You feel nothing when they tell you. Not relief, not pride. Exhaustion has burned through everything except the knowledge that whatever comes next will be harder than what you just did. Level 3, the OTC, Operator Training Course. 6 months. This is where they build you into something the conventional army doesn't have a name for. You learn close quarters battle at a level of precision that makes your ranger training feel like an introduction. You fire thousands of rounds per week, shooting around hostages with margins measured in inches. You clear rooms with live rounds and live role players standing next to the targets because Delta doesn't train with simulated consequences. If you miss, someone bleeds. You learn breaching, mechanical, ballistic, explosive, thermal. You learn to open any door on Earth in under 3 seconds. A lock, a hinge, a wall, a reinforced safe room door. You learn how to move through a structure so quickly and violently that the occupants don't have time to process what's happening before it's over. You learn tradecraft, surveillance detection routes, cover identities, how to move through a foreign city looking like you belong there, how to meet a source in a cafe without anyone noticing. Delta operators move between the worlds of soldier and spy more fluidly than any other unit in the military. OTC is where that transition begins. You learn advanced driving, evasive maneuvers, J-turns, ramming techniques, high-speed convoy movement through urban environments. You learn field medicine, not buddy aid, surgical-level trauma management. How to decompress a tension pneumothorax with a needle in a hallway, while rounds are impacting the wall 6 feet from your head. On graduation day, there's no ceremony, no family, no audience. Imagine this. They just give you a pager. Or, whatever the super fancy modern version of that is now, right? And told that you're now assigned to an assault squadron, A, B, C, or D. You are an operator. The word means something different here than anywhere else in the military. Level 4, the new operator. You're assigned to an assault troop within your squadron. A troop is roughly 16 operators. You are the newest. In a unit where the average operator has 8 to 12 years of special operations experience before they even arrive, being new means something. It means you prove yourself again. The skills you learned in OTC are the foundation. Your troop will build on them during a training cycle that never stops. You train 10 months a year and deploy for the other 2. Or you train 6 and deploy for 6, depending on the rotation and the world's appetite for crisis. You shoot more ammunition in a month than most infantry battalions shoot in a year. You run through the kill house until the close quarters battle sequences are embedded in your nervous system. The way breathing is: enter, clear left, clear right, target, hostage, transition, next room. You do it 1,000 times until you can do it in complete darkness by sound and feel alone. Your first deployment is to a location you will never name. You fly in a 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment MH-60 Blackhawk. Flown by a Night Stalker pilot who can put the aircraft on a rooftop, the size of a parking space at midnight with no lights. You hit a compound. The door comes off its hinges in a controlled detonation that sounds like God snapping his fingers. You move through the structure, 90 seconds from breach to clearance. The target is a high-value individual whose name you learned 6 hours ago in a briefing room, and will forget 6 hours after the mission because the next target is already being developed. You flex cuff him and put a bag over his head and walk him to the helicopter. 4 hours later, you're cleaning your weapon on a FOD-D, eating a protein bar. Nobody will ever know what you did tonight. That's the job. Level 5, the experienced operator. 3 years in the unit, you've deployed 6 times. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Africa, locations in Southeast Asia and South America that don't appear in any official record. You've been in over 200 direct action raids. You've breached compounds in Baghdad's Sadr city, cleared cave complexes in Tora Bora, and snatched an HVT from a moving vehicle on a highway in a country you can't name. You've killed people at distances measured in feet and distances measured in hundreds of meters. You can tell by the way a man reaches for his waistband whether he's going for a weapon or a phone. And you've been right every time. The margin for error is 0. You're selected for a reconnaissance troop, Rex. This is where the most experienced operators go. Rex doesn't kick doors. Rex watches. You conduct close target reconnaissance on objectives that assault troops will hit days or weeks later. You operate in 2 or 4-man teams, often in civilian clothes, often in denied territory, often for weeks without resupply or communication. You sit in a hide site 300 meters from a target compound for 72 hours, straight in a hole you dug with an entrenching tool and covered with local vegetation, logging every person who enters and exits, every vehicle plate number, every delivery, every pattern of life that the analysts will use to build the assault plan. You don't move. You don't speak above a whisper. You urinate into a bottle and defecate into a bag because any sign of human presence compromises the mission. The patience required is different from assault work. Assault is violence compressed into seconds. Rex is discipline stretched across days. Both require the same thing: the ability to be exactly where you're supposed to be. You run a team now, 4 operators. You're responsible for their training, their readiness, their performance on target, and their lives. A team leader in Delta carries authority that doesn't map to conventional rank. You might be an E7 leading men who are E7 South and E8s, because rank inside the unit is secondary to capability and role. The hierarchy is flat by design. Beckwith built it that way because he learned from the SAS that rigid ranked structures get people killed in small unit operations where the man on the ground sees things the commander doesn't. You plan operations. You receive a target package from the intelligence cell, a folder of photographs, signals intelligence, and human intelligence that tells you who lives in the compound, where they sleep, what weapons they carry, and what time the guard changes. You build a plan, rehearse it in the mock-up, brief it to the troop commander, execute it at 0200. On target, you make decisions in fractions of seconds that will be reviewed by lawyers and generals for months afterward. A man turns a corner holding something. You shoot or don't shoot. The object is a weapon or a phone or a baby. The debrief will determine which. You absorb the weight of these decisions because the alternative is hesitation. And hesitation in a hallway gets your team killed. You carry every call you've made. The ones that were right and the ones you're not sure about and the ones that wake you up at 3 a.m. in a way that no debriefing or legal review can resolve, because the lawyers weren't in the hallway. They didn't see what you saw in the half second you had to decide. After a deployment, you sit in a bar in Fayetteville with your team and nobody talks about the missions because nobody needs to. The shared silence is more honest than any conversation. Your wife asks how the trip was. Fine, you say. She stopped pressing years ago. Level 7, the senior operator. Troop sergeant major or troop commander, depending on whether you're enlisted or officer. You oversee 16 to 20 operators across multiple teams. You're the tactical authority on every operation your troop executes. The troop commander sets the strategic framework. You make it work on the ground. You've been in the unit for 8 years now. Over 300 combat operations. Your body is an inventory of damage. Blown eardrums from breaching charges. A knee rebuilt with titanium from a rooftop fall in Ramadi. Vertebrae compressed from thousands of parachute landings and helicopter insertions. And the accumulated weight of body armor worn 14 hours a day for years. The VA will rate you at 80% disability when you leave. The actual number is higher, but you'll never admit that because admitting damage feels like admitting limitation, and operators don't have limitations. They have workarounds. You mentor the new operators the way someone mentored you. Not through speeches, through example. Through the way you clear a room at 42 the same way you cleared it at 28. Through the calm in your voice on the radio when the breach goes wrong and the hallway is blocked and the backup plan becomes the primary plan in the space between two heartbeats. You've lost friends. Not colleagues, not acquaintances. Brothers. Men whose children call you uncle, and whose wives call you when something breaks in the house because their husbands are deployed, and you're the only person they trust who understands this life. Men you trained with and deployed with and bled next to in hallways on 3 continents. The unit has a wall. Not like the CIA's wall of stars. More personal. Photographs in a hallway that most people will never walk through. In a building that most people will never enter. In a compound that most people will never know exists. You walk past those photographs every morning. You know every name. Level 8, the command. Squadron commander, an 05 lieutenant colonel. You answer to the unit commander, a full colonel, who answers to the JSOC commander, a 2 or 3-star general. 4 people between your operators and the Oval Office. When the president authorizes a kill or capture mission against a high-value target, the order travels down that chain and lands on your desk. And you translate it into a plan that puts your men through a door in a country that may or may not know they're there. You deploy your squadron as a task force. Your operators, plus 160th SOAR helicopters, plus Air Force combat controllers, plus Rangers as a quick reaction force, plus ESA signals intelligence, plus CIA case officers who develop the target. You run operations every night during a deployment rotation, every single night. Hit, exploit, move. The intelligence gathered on one raid generates the target for the next raid, and the tempo is relentless. During the peak of Iraq operations between 2005 and 2008, Delta squadrons were conducting 10 to 15 raids per night across multiple provinces. Systematically dismantling al-Qaeda and Iraq's network, one cell leader at a time. In what became the most sustained high-volume special operations campaign in American history. The fatigue is cumulative and invisible and relentless. Your operators don't complain because operators don't complain. You manage the human cost of sustained combat in men who will never acknowledge that a cost exists. Level 9, the retiree. You leave the unit after 12 or 15 or 20 years. No parade, no press release, no mention in any official record that you were ever there. Your service record says you were assigned to a Department of the Army staff element at Fort Bragg. That's it. The missions you ran, the targets you captured or killed, the hostages you rescued, the countries you operated in, none of it appears anywhere a civilian could find it. You take a job. Private military contracting. The CIA's Special Activities Center, which recruits heavily from Delta and Dev Group for paramilitary operations that require deniability. Some operators go to the agency and continue doing the same work in the same countries under a different letterhead. The pay triples. But the work is the same, and the silence is the same, and the distance from normal life is the same. You try civilian life. You sit in traffic. You attend your daughter's school play. You stand in line at the grocery store behind a man arguing about a coupon. And you think about the last compound you hit where a man behind a door tried to kill you, and you shot him twice in the chest and once in the head. And then you stepped over his body and cleared the next room. And now you're standing in a grocery store and you can't reconcile the two realities, so you stop trying. You see a therapist, maybe. The unit has gotten better about mental health, about acknowledging that 300 combat operations leave marks that don't show on X-rays. But the culture of silence that made you effective also makes you incapable of describing what you've done to someone who wasn't there. You find that the only people who understand are the people you served with. So you call them and they call you, and you meet in places where you can sit with your back to the wall and talk about things you can't tell anyone else, and that's enough. It has to be level 10, the cycle. Right now, somewhere at Fort Liberty they renamed Bragg, but the operators still call it Bragg. A sergeant in the 75th Ranger Regiment is reading a recruitment notice. He's 26. He has a ranger tab and a combat infantryman badge and a Purple Heart he doesn't talk about. He's one of the best soldiers in his battalion, and he knows it, and his chain of command knows it. And that's exactly why the notice found its way to him. He's thinking about the selection, the mountains, the 40-mile ruck with no time hack, the 90% attrition rate. He's thinking about the operators he's worked alongside on joint operations. The quiet men in civilian clothes and beards who appeared on his FOB and disappeared 48 hours later, leaving nothing behind except shell casings and intelligence reports. He wants to be one of them. He doesn't know what it costs. He doesn't know about the 300 raids or the blown eardrums or the rebuilt knees, or the marriages that fracture under the weight of secrets and absences, or the particular loneliness of doing extraordinary things that you can never describe to anyone outside the compound. He doesn't know about the wall with the photographs, or the names you carry, or the grocery store moments where two realities collide and neither one wins. He knows the selection date. He knows where to show up. He'll show up. They always do. The best ones always walk toward the hardest thing they can find because something in them needs to know if they're good enough. The unit will answer that question. It always does. Most won't be. The ones who are will join the most elite fighting force in the world and spend their careers in a shadow that the public will never see. The cycle begins.